Hello internet people, it's me again. Third video, yay! And today I'm gonna talk to you about toxic masculinity, which is a subject I've been wanting to talk about for a while. I just wasn't sure how to approach it, and I was given the opportunity last week watching the Jim Jefferies show. Jim Jefferies is an Australian comedian, and he has a show on the Comedy Network, which is a type of Jon Stewart, Stephen Colbert sorts of politic comedy sort of thing. And they made a segment about toxic masculinity. So I'm going to talk to you about it. I'm going to break it down, what they said, and offer you my comments along the way. The segment opens on Terry Crew and the testimony he gave few weeks back about how he was sexually molested by a man who just grabbed his junk. So Jim Jefferies says, "It seems strange that Terry Crew is a victim because he's so masculine, but that's exactly what he's a victim of." Toxic masculinity, it isn't a new concept. It's been existed for a while, but the gendered study, the Feminist movement and its cousin, this social justice warrior, have been using that term, and there's no denying it, that they use that term to put men down. They do it all the freaking time, and like everything else they promote, their intentions are good, but they're misguided. In a broad sense, what toxic masculinity is a social gendered conditioning of men to adopt certain masculine dispositions that are stereotypical for their gender, and that leads them to adopting behaviors that harms them and harms others, like aggression, dominance, show of anger, and a general repression of emotion and feeling, because those are viewed as weaknesses. And what gets me about the point that Jim Jefferies was trying to bring across is that Terry Crew's victimhood doesn't come from being groped by another man. It comes from his own masculinity. And he's sort of like actively displacing the blame of the action from the aggressor to the aggressed. And you're putting the blame on the wrong thing. You put the blame on the person that caused the harm. So his argument there, it doesn't quite sit well with me, because it's not quite right. He goes on to say, yes, toxic masculinity. The Me Too movement is changing the way we are talking about feminism, but we don't often talk about what it means to be masculine. When I say toxic masculinity, I don't mean to imply that all men are toxic. If you group all men in with the bad ones, that might alienate the good guys that truly believe in the women's rights movement. I find it interesting that every time somebody brings about the subject of toxic masculinity, they have to make this little disclaimer that, we don't mean all men. If you have to do that, maybe it's worth looking into why you have to do that. Because you do that because you always meet with this opposition to the concept, and maybe trying to understand where that opposition come from, what the other person's point of view is. It might be like good thing to look into. But of course, most postmodernists who are trying to sell you this idea are unable to objectively see from other people's perspective, because they are ideologue at heart, and they view the world through this filter of their own ideology, and they view the world and they are empowered by their own belief. Their ideas are belief, and it gives them a sense of meaning, that they're doing something good. So viewing things from your ideology, it prevents you from viewing things from another person's perspective, and you don't want to do that. You become close-minded, and you reject a lot of things by thinking like that, and that's not good. But what I like about what Jim Jefferies said is that he recognized that it can alienate the good masculine element, which many of the critiques are doing, which is happening to a lot of the critiques. But nowadays, mainstream media now must virtue their position for feminism in order not to get attacked and shamed by it. Tell us, it's really a tell us you're with us, or we're gonna slander you, and you're gonna attack you for not being with us. So what he's doing here is sort of like just defending men in a way, while also trying to not get attacked by the feminist status quo, probably out of fear, of their backlash. Which is a shame coming from a comedian who's known for his offensive style of humor, which I love him for it. He used to make a lot of misogynistic jokes, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out that when he talks about alienating the good elements, he's sort of like talking about himself too in some way. He goes on to say, it's the same way the phrase straight white male is always used with contempt. I can't help, that's who I am. Fucking exactly. That's exactly it. This is exactly at the core, so many people have issues with both of those terms, toxic masculinity and straight white male. My issue is that while he acknowledged the problematic aspect of the terms, he also go on to excuse it, like I just said, because I think he's been told, like most people nowadays, been told that this idea that feminists want is good in nature. They're trying to do good things, and you need to accept that. And for me, absolutely not. If you want to be good, stop following an ideology. Follow what's true, what's lean to more order than the chaos feminism is creating in society. And following what's true in this context comes with rejecting ideology, this collectivist ideology, which is very tribal in nature. Follow what's true, no matter how bad it hurts. And that's why most people don't. Most people hold on to their belief because belief gives you comfort. It gives you a grounding. That's so comforting because there's so much about life in general we don't know. So holding on to your belief, it grounds you. And that's why most people can't live with their belief being questioned, because then what do you fall back on? You become very uncomfortable, and most people have a hard time dealing with that. Jim Jefferies continues. The phrase toxic masculinity immediately makes guys defensive, and women too. You're thinking, I'm not toxic, I'm one of the good guys. And that's exactly the problem, isn't it? I'm not saying men are victims. I understand that being a man, especially a white man, comes with a mountain of privilege. But all men are taught negative stereotypes about themselves from a young age, and that's where the toxic part is born. Women experience that too. It's mind-boggling that I have to say that, because people don't get it. They only view things from one perspective. Women are also conditioned to behave a certain way because of their gender. We're told to be nice, look pretty, be classy, don't do this, don't do that, conform with what everybody else is doing. And this distinction between the distinction between the genders here, and why mostly just men get this repressive retaliation, is because those toxic behaviors that men exhibit, that they get called out for, it serves them. Okay? Aggressivity and dominance help men get ahead in the world, help them distinguish themselves amongst their peers, and help them get noticed by female or so. They have like two dimensions why they act like this. Women are attracted to confident and dominant men, and toxic masculinity displays a lot of this. Of course, I'm not saying that toxic masculinity is necessary for men, nor am I excusing its use. I'm saying that it can serve them in many ways, and it can benefit them in certain contexts. Men are more individualistic than women. Women are more collectivist, so it doesn't serve women at all to act in a toxic masculinity way. Being aggressive, being dominant is gonna get them rejected from the collective, from the group. So that's why men display it and women don't. So this segment goes on to make claim that it's boy and men who promote those toxic ideas in other boys and men, and yeah, that's what social gender conditioning is about. It's the same when like a gay person is raised into a strict religious household that teach them that being gay is an abomination. They're not gonna feel like empowered by this. They're gonna feel like they're put down by this. And girl experience that too, by being told that being viewed as pretty and attractive, it's the most important thing there is. So women, you know, what happened to women when they believe that? They believe the same sort of gender conditioning they're offered. They start wearing makeup, they get into fashion, not saying that those things are bad, but like some push it to such an extreme point that you develop mental illness, like anorexia, and you start harming yourself, all in so they can fit, you know, this idea that it's what they're supposed to be according to their gender. Both men and women are conditioned. Both men and women experience negative things from this conditioning. They experience this in different ways because men and women are different in many ways. Jim Jefferies goes on to say that men are discouraged from expressing their feelings. Often this comes out as aggression. A man can't even cry without becoming a meme, and he shows a meme in which Michael Jordan is viewed crying. And yeah, first, women are mocked for crying too, like, let's not deny this. And women are as guilty of promoting toxic behavior in men that men are. Like, women shame men for crying all the time, telling them they're not men enough, or they should man up. And any psychologist will tell you that repressing your feeling, it's not good. So telling men they should open up, it certainly has some validity. And in our day and age, feminism has taken this idea to the completely opposite direction. Men repress their feelings, but women express that any expression of any type of feeling is right and it's valid, and those who say otherwise are oppressing you by trying to invalidate your experience. Men express not enough. That's not good. Women, not all of them of course, but I'm pointing out that the worst example of femininity. Some of them express their feelings way too much all the time, and you see it with the feminism activism on campus, where they make these big scenes where they're crying and yelling, and you know, it's teaching women that any of their feelings that they have should be expressed. It's just as toxic as saying men shouldn't express anything. We need to have more of a balance between the two, because this untamed show of feelings that they have is no good. It's no better than not showing your feelings at all. So the segment goes on to make a point by some sort of scientist lady showing a graphic that boys who adopt those toxic genders expectation put on them start turning to suicide more. You're trying to force an idea of conformity on someone that doesn't work for them. Of course it's gonna create like inner conflicts in them. It's like trying to force a more nerdy, intellectually focused boy into sports and football and car mechanics. They're not gonna feel comfortable with that. You're just gonna make them feel bad about themselves. You're gonna tell them that because they don't like football, something's wrong about them, and that's wrong. And women push that too. But what I don't like about this argument this lady is making is that it's the gendered expectation put on boys that are the primary cause of suicide, and it's way too simplistic. This is an oversimplification of a broader problem, because there's other factors that plays, in my opinion, a bigger role. The gynocentric society we live in nowadays, in which boys and men are unequipped to find a meaning for themselves, and they're taught that their masculinity is not right, that it needs to be redefined. How do you want somebody to express themselves as an individual when you tell them that they're wrong to do so? So yeah, there's other factors here, and you can't ignore those factors, especially when they probably has a way better impact on the whole thing here. Jim Jefferies continue, we need to redefine masculinity for today's world, because men are getting mixed messages and it can be confusing. And then any man watching this is gonna say, well, fuck yeah, that's exactly what's going on. Men feel extremely uncomfortable living in a more feminized world, in a world that's catered to appease and please women mostly. And that's the feminist agenda in a nutshell. They want to redefine masculinity, and not exactly for men's sake, although some men do understand that they can benefit from it. But they want to change men so that women's life are easier and are less impacted by them. It's really let's get rid of toxic masculinity so they can't use it against us and take our right away and our powers away. It's almost like there's an inferiority complex at play here within the feminist doctrine, because don't forget that this feminism isn't only about human right, it's an equality. It's also about obtaining more power from themselves. That's what they want to do with pushing this idea of toxic masculinity. They want to take power away from men, but not to create a more balanced world. That's the thing they'll tell you. But if you look at their action do not promote their idea. Their action promote more of a female supremacy kingdom they want to create for all women to be able to express themselves in feminine ways all the time without any sort of sexism or backlash. Never mind that we're creating a crisis in masculinity from that. They don't give a shit. It's all about the women. And that's what I wanted to talk to you guys about. That's my thought on toxic masculinity. And if there's one thing I want to really promote is if you're gonna bring about a subject like this, it's like you're holding a medal and you just want to look at this, just one of the face of the medal. it's toxic masculine. All the problem is toxic masculinity. And then you ask, hey, what's on the other side of that medal? And there, no, just that one side. And the other side of the medal is toxic femininity. And if you don't talk about toxic femininity and how it acts with toxic masculinity, you're gonna create a narrative within the public that only men are toxic. And that's why toxic masculinity is such a disliked concept. It offers no balance at all. But one thing I like about it, I like about it, that feminists are talking about it, is that it comes from a movement that has traditionally viewed men as the oppressor, as a problem, you know? But now they're accepting that they can also be victims, because they consider men being victims of their own masculinity, which is I think for feminism a huge breakthrough, that they are accepting male victimization. They're misguided as to where this victimization comes from, because I believe it comes from, and there's a lot of evidence for it, it comes from a lot more from the implementation of feminist doctrine into policies and laws within society. But they can't see that, because they view things from the filter of their own ideologies. Men are oppressors, women are oppressed. So, and one other thing I want to point out is I love Jim Jefferies. He's one of my favorite comedians. So this is not meant to shame him or his opinion. Anyway, it's probably written by, this segment's probably written by a team of writers anyway, and I don't mean to attack any of them. I just want to offer a counter opinion to what they have to offer. So that's it. I hope you liked it. I'm already planning another video, and please leave me comments and like my stuff. I survive on your likes, and I'll see you all later. Bye.